Ready?
Yep. Do I like my hair right now?
I don't know. You have a little, whatever that's called,
A
going on.
A widow's peak?
Is that a widow's peak?
No, I think it's called a dragon tail. A rat tail. Is that a rat tail?
No, it's not a rat tail.
Is my hat? I think my hat is behind you.
Yes, plug it.
I'm gonna be a weirdo and wear a hat indoors. I haven't been liking my hair lately.
No? Is that good?
And that doesn't improve it at all, but at least you
I
can't
can
see.
still see your widow's peak, Shane.
At least you can't see my hair.
All right, today we have a really exciting video. We're both happy to be doing this, I think.
It feels like the kind of video that's going to get a lot of comments from people arguing with us.
True.
And telling us that we're wrong and that because they've been called out, they need to defend themselves.
Yeah.
We don't want to be confrontational.
No, but I think this is an important topic. We get questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
We see comments on our channel and people saying things in person that are kind of offensive, terms that people are using. And so we're going to make a video about what terms and words you should and should not say about disabled people.
Yeah, the language that we use when we talk about disability is really important because that creates all of the assumptions and ideas that people have about disability. So in addition to talking about how able-bodied people talk about disability, we're also going to talk about how disabled people themselves talk about disability, and some controversy that exists in that area as well. So here we go. This is just a list of things that you shouldn't say when you're talking about disability.
Thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Today we're going to be making brown butter rigatoni with asparagus, walnuts, and lemony ricotta.
Oh, I have bad news.
What?
The ricotta,
Yeah?
I used it as a face mask last night. And then, that was about half of it. I spread the rest of it across my body.
Nope.
HelloFresh has something for everyone, including low-calorie, vegetarian, and family-friendly recipes every week. You can save up to 28% by using HelloFresh versus grocery store shopping. And HelloFresh's carbon footprint is 25% lower than that of meals made from store-bought groceries. You can easily change your delivery days or food preferences and skip a week whenever you need. HelloFresh donated over 2.5 million meals to charity in 2019, and this year is stepping up their food donations amid the coronavirus crisis.
Okay, we got so excited about the food that we ate it and then went to bed and forgot to tell you the most important part. You can use our code 80 Squirmy and Grubs to get a total of $80 off and free shipping on your first box with purchase. Go to HelloFresh.com to redeem and for more details.
Yeah, sometimes we get a little frantic when we're hungry, which happened last night, so we're sorry. You can use our code 80 Squirmy and Grubs to get a total of $80 off and free shipping on your first box with purchase. Go to HelloFresh.com to redeem and for more details.
So we'll start with the most obvious, and these are phrases that infantilize someone with a disability, makes them into a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Speed racer.
This is for people in wheelchairs. This
Sure.
happens to Shane a lot when we're at the grocery store. A person, generally older people, trying to be friendly, will see Shane in his chair and say something like, "Whoa there, speed racer,"
Yeah.
or "You have a license for that thing?"
Slow down there, buddy.
Or "That looks like fun. Can I have a ride?"
Yeah, I mean, other phrases that are kind of like similar to speed racer, buddy,
Yeah.
I get all the time. And
Big guy.
big guy. I know that you can address someone with that term and it can be not offensive, but it's the way that they single out me with my wheelchair as the big guy and the buddy.
And most 28-year-old men aren't referred to as big guy. Like, if you get into an elevator, would you expect the stranger in the elevator to say, "Hey there, big guy"? Like, no, you really don't. It's very strange. And it always gives me like a pit in my stomach when someone says that, because I'm just like, oh my God, that was so rude. It's so rude.
It's important to remember that people with disabilities are just living their lives like anyone else. We are not special or, deserving extra
Friendliness.
Coddling or friendliness. Just treat us the way you would treat any other stranger that you meet on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
That kind of leads to the next phrase that is used a lot, and it's not as obviously offensive, and that is special needs.
That word is used in school settings a lot. It's used by parents of kids that have disabilities. And in the disability community, from what I've seen, it's generally seen as a term that was created by able-bodied people to make them feel better about disabled people.
Yeah, if you think about it, special needs means that my very common sense and kind of humane needs, like caregiving and ramps and accessibility, that's not special, and it shouldn't be considered special.
Yeah. The other thing is that special needs isn't a protected class of people under any U.S. laws. So the ADA talks about disabled people, and special needs people aren't under that category.
Yeah, and so I know that this one's going to get some pushback because people feel like it's not offensive, and it perfectly fits the disabled person in their life. All we're telling you is that being so involved in the disability community, what we hear is that disabled people do not like the phrase, and we feel like it makes us too special, and we're not.
There was this video that went around a while ago, and it was made by a bunch of people with Down syndrome, and they were talking about like what their needs would be if they were special. And I remember there was one that was like, it's not like we need to eat dinosaur eggs, like all of our needs are very normal. So like that's the sort of, attitude that I think a lot of people take toward that term.
Yeah.
The next word is similar. It is differently abled, which I think is a lot less common than special needs, but has a similar ring to it in that it tries to make disabled sound better and makes it differently abled.
I think that's a great way to think about all of these.
Yeah.
If a word is trying to shy away from disability because disability is assumed to be a bad thing, that's a problem. That's a problem. We need to make it so that disability doesn't have a negative connotation.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest point of the whole disability activism movement, is that disability is not bad. And so differently abled is like just shining around the word disability.
Another thing about that word is that every human is differently abled.
Yeah.
So saying that it's not clear.
It doesn't define disability in any way.
Yeah.
Which is important, and disability is not bad.
And we have seen some other content creators in the disability community use that term. So it's definitely not a term that everyone agrees is bad.
But I do think the opinion of activists is that it is an unhelpful term. We'll get into in a little bit why we think that other disabled people do like some of these words. It's a whole big issue. So we'll get to that in a bit. The next word or kind of idea is inspirational. And I think we've talked about this a lot, but anytime that you see something that is calling a disabled person inspirational for doing something normal, like having a job or having a family or having a relationship, it's a problem.
Well, you'll see, like, you can think of posters that have a kid that has a prosthetic leg, say, and the kid is jumping rope, and you're going to see underneath it a phrase that says something like, no excuses. Like, that is the kind of inspiration that is called inspiration porn, and there's a TED Talk about that you guys should watch.
Yeah, we'll link that below. That's a really great TED Talk. The problem here is that making disability inspirational comes with the idea that disability is so challenging for people, that to be able to even, jump rope or have a relationship is some wonderful accomplishment.
Yeah.
And that's not true. As you've seen in hundreds of our videos, my life is very normal. Most disabled people will agree that their lives are not inspiring or profound. They're just living their life, and they need accommodations here and there. And the world is often not suitable for their needs.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you can never find a disabled person inspiring if they're doing something that's worthy of being inspirational.
Exactly.
There are lots of disabled people doing incredible things, and that can inspire you.
Yeah.
But if you see someone in a wheelchair at the grocery store, that should not be something that inspires you.
However, if you see me at the grocery store and I am in the midst of a 10-second burp, that's inspiring. Like, it's okay to say, wow, that really changed my life, and now I think that you're my inspiration. I get that.
Okay.
Another big one is the word cripple or crippled. This is a very old word. You might be able to talk better about this with your research that you've done. But yeah, it's highly offensive, and it was used back in like the 1800s and 1900s to just be a derogatory term for disabled people. So don't refer to us as crippled.
Yeah, and on that same note, some disabled people do use that term for themselves, but that does not mean that you should refer to them that way.
Yeah, that's more of like a reclaiming kind of an injustice that was done to us.
Yeah. This isn't on our list, but I just want to add in the word handicapped.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's like very similar to this, and then it's an older term.
Yeah.
And I recently learned, a couple of months ago, I guess, that the word handicapped originally came from the term hand in cap, which was used for beggars. So I think people don't really realize that handicapped is actually like about people that were on the street begging for money, and that's why it's like not a very nice word.
I still slip that into my conversation,
like handicapped parking.
Like, let's find a handicapped space in the parking lot. So these are all things that like we need to actively be mindful of. I mean, we're not perfect. We don't always use the right word. Yeah. But we can all do better to focus on the words that we're using.
Now, hopefully this one goes without saying, but you should not ever use the R word.
Yep. I don't think we need to explain that. It's highly offensive. So don't use the R word.
Yeah. All right. The next one is wheelchair bound.
This one really boils my blood.
Shane hates this one. I think a lot of people do. We've had articles written where Shane's referred to in that way, and we always make them change it.
Yeah, wheelchair bound implies that our wheelchairs are limiting things and that they hold us back, when they are the exact opposite. If I didn't have my wheelchair, I'd be laying on the floor right now, not moving, not able to move. And my wheelchair is what allows me to be independent. It allows me to move wherever I need to move. I'm not bound to my wheelchair any more than I am bound to my home.
Yeah.
It creates this idea that wheelchairs are a bad thing. They're a binding, limiting device, and that's not true.
Another one that's similar is the term suffering from. So someone will say, like, Shane is suffering from SMA, which is just not a very nice way of saying that someone has a disability.
I live with SMA.
Yeah.
I'm not suffering. People with disabilities overwhelmingly do not describe themselves as suffering from their disability. Yeah. We're suffering from a lack of accessibility and a lack of empathy and kindness and understanding in the world, but that is not our disability. That is society failing to adequately understand us.
I have two more that I'm going to throw in here. These are not on the list, but these are things that people say a lot in comments. They're sort of cliches. One is like, Shane, I don't even see you as disabled.
Yep.
Okay? Or like, Hannah, you're amazing for seeing past Shane's wheelchair. Shane is disabled. I see that. I acknowledge it.
I'm proudly disabled.
Yeah, I don't see past his wheelchair. It's not something you should see past. Yeah. Like, it's here. It's very clear.
It's a part of me, and my disability is a big part of my interaction with the world. And so, again, to avoid it by saying, I see past your disability, is making it into a bad thing that needs to be seen past in the first place.
It's not a compliment, and people think it's a compliment.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the phrase, the only disability is a bad attitude. And people have like left that on our channel, I think trying to make you feel good that like you're not actually disabled.
Yeah.
Which is just like not true. And also the only disability is a bad attitude sort of takes away the fact that society isn't accessible. And a smile isn't going to get someone up a flight of stairs. Like a bad attitude has absolutely nothing to do with having a disability.
Yeah, it connects to the whole like toxic positivity movement, where every problem is you're encouraged to face every problem by smiling at it or staying positive. And that, I mean, while a positive attitude is helpful, it also doesn't cure systemic ableism or ignorance or hatred. We have to actually do real work to fix those things and not just be happy about them.
Yeah.
So I would argue that the only disability in life is a variety of disabilities that you can be born with or acquire.
I'm editing right now and realized that we forgot to sort of make the bigger point that this phrase situates disability as a bad thing. It says the only disability is a bad attitude, which implies that since a bad attitude is generally seen negatively, that having a disability is a bad thing.
What she said.
All right, we have two more. This one is sort of similar to what we've been talking about, but I want to call it out specifically because my college wrote an article about us and used this exact phrase. It really angered me. And it is the word despite or like overcame. So in my college article, it was Shane has, or despite his disability, Shane has a sense of humor. Something like that.
Think about that.
Yeah.
That implies that my disability should stop me from having a sense of humor.
Yep.
People with disabilities don't do things despite their disabilities. They just do things.
Yeah. And you haven't overcome your disability. You are just living your life with a disability. Like you are disabled and living your life, and that is totally normal, and you have not overcome anything.
Exactly.
I think that's a huge trope that Shane is successful by overcoming his disability, which is not true.
Yeah. It means that I'm in some way like not disabled.
Yeah.
And I am. And I face a lot of issues because of it in the world.
Yeah.
So, not overcoming my disability.
Nope.
Just having one.
Yep.
The last topic is kind of a debate in the disability society. And this is the one that, you know, there are arguments for both sides. And it's the idea of using person-first language, you know, examples saying, I am a person with a disability, or identity-first language, which is saying, I am a disabled person.
So in the past, Shane always used person-first language, which was like, I'm a person with a disability. And then more recently, he realized that that is just trying to distance himself from disability. And when he was younger, he really didn't want to be seen as disabled. He wanted to be seen as normal, and therefore tried to emphasize that he was just a person that just happened to have a disability, and it was totally separate from him.
And that is ableism.
Yeah.
It was internalized ableism. The world showed me that disability was a bad thing, and I internalized that, told myself that my disability was a bad thing, and even in the language I tried to distance myself from my disability. Not healthy, not helpful. As I got older and met more people with disabilities, and there I'm using it. See, it's difficult to remember.
Yeah.
I learned and I realized that disabled person is a much healthier and more proud way to talk about disability.
I had actually written my entire senior thesis for college with person-first language because that was what my department required. So I think that's still pretty common in like academic writing to use person-first, but I've since, through learning from those people, switched to using identity first. But again, not every disabled person prefers that. So it is really tricky.
Yeah, and I think you have to honor what the person that you're interacting with prefers.
Yeah.
It's not saying one is right and one is wrong, but I do think a lot of disability activists and advocates have talked pretty extensively about why person-first language is inherently ableist, and how moving towards identity-first language can be a really helpful and freeing thing. And so that's what I use to talk about myself. And if you comment below, feel free to say disabled person, or just Shane.
I think it's interesting that disability is one of the only things that we use person-first language with. Like, we don't use it for race, like person with blackness.
Yeah.
Like, we don't use that. Or sexuality, like person with straightness or gayness. Like, we don't use that. Person with tallness. Like, in every other aspect, we're pretty happy to just say black person or tall person. But not for disability. There's like a thing that, because disability is bad, we should say person with a disability,
Yeah, and that's a great way to wrap up. Disability is not bad, and any language that either explicitly or implicitly suggests that it is bad is not helpful, and we all can do a better job at, paying attention to the words that we're using.
Yep.
So we hope you found this helpful, and share it with your friends, because lots of people still don't know how to talk about disability, and that's okay. That's why we're making this. We hope that it helps you remember and learn, and we can all do better.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.